This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. If you're in need of a VPN and want a great deal on it, stay tuned till the end of the video. If you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with the story of the disastrous and also comical Battle of Karansebes, as it is by far my most popular video to date. However, I ended the video on a note of we don't know what exactly happened, because quite frankly, I did not have the time to go on a rabbit hole hunt for some maybe non-existent primary sources about the battle. But now we're back here well over a year from my original video, and I have managed to find some extra sources about the battle that may shine some light on the actual events that happened near Karansebes that September of 1788. So the story I presented at the start of my first video is the main story that is presented on most websites, including Wikipedia. To a certain extent, that story is true but wildly over-exaggerated. For example, the ridiculously high 10,000 casualty count comes from an 1834 French publication, which most certainly took some liberties to portray the rival Austrian army as incompetent. Continuing on from there, we can presume there were many more second-hand publications, mostly from rivaled Austrian countries, taking large liberties with the facts or even making up new ones, such as the made-up order of an artillery fire directed straight into an Austrian camp, or the fact that the Austrian military was carrying a chest with the entire army's payroll, which we know wasn't an Austrian military practice. Suddenly, when looking at all of these made-up facts about the battle, it may start to seem like the events of Karansebes were just made up by Austrian rivals as to diminish their prestige in European politics. However, that is very unlikely, as there are too many articles from different countries talking about the same event. This also combined with the fact that it wasn't just foreign articles that talked about the Battle of Karansebes, and there were Austrian publications as well, means that it is highly implausible that the story was made up. In fact, the Karansebes story presented in my first video is a centuries-long amalgamation of second-hand over-exaggerated narratives of an event that most likely wasn't as drastic as it is made out to be today. So to get away from this bias and over-exaggerations, records from the actual September of 1788 have to be consulted. These aren't as numerous as the second-hand 19th century records, but there is enough of them to make out what happened in Karansebes. There are multiple non-German Austrian sources from 1788 that talk about the Battle of Karansebes, but they all seem to be reciting the German and Austrian publications. Overall, it seems like there are three main writings that claim to have first-hand sources, or interviewed first-hand sources like the soldiers from the battle. One of these writings are the official Ottoman military accounts, which naturally can't give us a full picture as they were on the other side of the war, but can provide valuable information. Information like the fact that the Ottoman troops were ready to engage the Austrian army, only for them to find out in late September that the Austrians withdrew from the strategically important Timiș-Cerna gap, of which Karansebes lies on the northern end of. I mentioned this source in my first video, but what I didn't mention was a different Ottoman source that accredits the Austrian withdrawal to the Austrian fear of facing the terrifying Ottoman army. However, this is obviously just Ottoman propaganda at play, but the first source is still sound, giving us a solid ground to stand on, knowing that the Austrians did in fact retreat from Karansebes for some reason. So now we have to look at the German and Austrian sources claiming to have first-hand records. The first of these sources, the Politische Journal from Hamburg, seems like a good place to start, as it gives personal testimonies from witnesses and cites official Austrian court documents. It tells us that a skirmish did happen between the Ottomans and Austrians at some point in early September of 1788. The skirmish most likely occurred somewhere near the Timiș-Cerna gap, as it says that the Kaiser ordered a retreat via Karansebes towards Temesvar. During this confusing retreat, the local Wallachians, which saw an opportunity to rob the Austrian soldiers, started to spread rumors throughout the army that the Ottomans were in close pursuit, getting ready to attack at any moment. This turned the withdrawal into a disorderly, panicked mess, during which two Austrian regiments managed to run into each other. Due to the confusion and an expected Ottoman ambush, both regiments mistook each other for Ottoman soldiers and opened fire. They quickly noticed their mistake, but the damage was already done. That is where the German source ends the story and continues on talking about the bigger picture ramifications of the retreat. The source doesn't mention if there were any casualties or deaths, but it is most likely that there were at least a couple. Going on from there, checking the Austrian article from Real Zeitung, there are some similarities with the German source, but also some differences. One of the similarities being that the initial confusion was started by Wallachians, however the way they started it does differ from the German source. According to the Austrian source, the panicked confusion didn't happen during the army's retreat, but while it was encamped near the town of Karansebes. Apparently, with the intention of robbing the camp, Wallachians started to yell, "Turks! Turks!" causing a confusion and fear throughout the camp. The Austrian article continues on saying that during the confusion, two regiments mistook each other for Ottoman soldiers and opened fire, just as in the German source. But the Austrian article does give more explanation of why the soldiers mistook each other for Ottomans, saying that the soldiers opened fire only after mishearing a halt command from one of the opposing regiment officers as an Ottoman battle cry, Allah. However, after a few shots fired, the soldiers quickly realized their mistake and stopped. That is where the account ends, and the article continues on talking about the military actions of the Austrian army as they decided to retreat from Karansebes. So even though the Austrian source does differ a little bit from the German source, the two tell a pretty similar overarching story, showing us that the main underlying element of the battle was fear of Ottoman attacks sparked by local Wallachians, after which during the confusion two regiments accidentally opened fire on each other thinking the other one was the enemy. So even though today the Battle of Karansebes is remembered as a drunken scuffle turned bad that in the end was responsible for 10,000 casualties, the true story is far milder. However, the truth never stops people from embellishing the facts, especially when they have a hidden agenda to push or an entertaining story to tell. Speaking of entertaining stories to tell, Surfshark VPN can be very useful whether you're trying to secure your sensitive data when browsing the web or access geo-restricted content like those sweet Netflix and HBO shows. It can help you avoid price discrimination or get past internet censorship, and to help you with all this, Surfshark VPN is giving you 83% discount, which unlocks the best price on the market as well as 1 extra month for free. All you gotta do is either hit the link in the description or type in surfshark.deal/mlaser and enter the promo code mlaser. Thank you for Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Hope you enjoyed this explanation video. It was a long time in the making, and I admit there are still certain elements I either didn't talk about for time's sake or remain unexplained or undefined due to the lackluster sources I managed to find. But I just felt like it was time to end this project as I have already spent a lot of time on it. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell button if you want to be notified every time I release a video, which is once a month. And until then, stick around for history.